Okay, product review on the Infinity airbrush by Harder and Steenbeck. The model we're specifically looking at here is the 2-in-1. Code on that is 126543. Now, one of the things that we teach on our airbrush courses, quite simply, is the airbrush that is best for you, quite simply, is the one that you get on best with. That seems to be the mantra of a lot of people I've spotted on YouTube. Not every airbrush is best for everyone. This is the airbrush. This is one of my personal favourites. I like this one. What I want to do is I just want to go through and share this particular airbrush with you so you can see the functions of it, and I'll show you a few examples of how it actually works. So first of all, what do you get for your money? Obviously the airbrush itself comes in its own box. Get some very useful instructions. So in here gives you some useful tips in multiple languages, do's and don'ts, fault finding, etc. It also goes through a parts list, so that should you ever suffer the misfortune of either losing or damaging any parts, they're all there, they're all listed so that you can get a replacement. Any decent airbrush manufacturer, or any manufacturer of airbrushes worth their salt, will purely and simply, they will provide you with an option to get spare parts. So there's the actual airbrush itself in its box. Let's have a look. In a plastic box, there you go. Here is the airbrush itself, 2-in-1. It is what's called an independent double action airbrush, so it's a press down and a pull back. You've got this gold auxiliary lever here which helps aid a really smooth action. One of the benefits of this particular airbrush that I find personally is it is a very sensitive trigger. It's a very light spring. It seems to be quite synonymous with a lot of the urban airbrushes. Unlike some other airbrush manufacturers, they tend to use more of what I could describe as an industrious spring, which suits some people, not others. This one is quite a light spring. Functions of this particular one. Obviously, as I've mentioned, you've got the independent double action trigger. You've got this little wheel just in here, thinking, well, what does that do? Well, what this does is you can adjust the tension of the spring. So if I unscrew that and loosen that, what it does, it slackens off the tension in the spring. So you can have really a very, very touch sensitive spring, like that. That's very, very touch sensitive. Or you can screw it in, which squashes the spring inside, which makes it perhaps a little bit more robust. So if I screw that all the way in like that, there you go, that feels much more of a tense spring. This is a really neat little function on the back. If I pull that out, push that back in, I can screw this in and set it. If you look, there's a little marker here, so you can set that at a given point. So let's call that 1. Okay, you can see that it's pretty much set to 1 on there. If I just get that to the camera, there you go, that's set to 1. That means I've got a very, very tiny little bit of movement on the trigger. If you suffer a blockage at the front, pull it out, blast, push it back in exactly the same position you were before, and off you go. It's quite a useful time-saving device, I find. Obviously, nice chromed body. You've got a small 2mm cup with this particular one. It is detachable. You can take that one off, and in this particular set, the 2-in-1, you do get a larger cup, like so. You can get lids for these, but they are an optional extra. They don't actually supply them as standard with this particular one, but they are available as an optional extra. Let's take that off, put that one back on, and let's look at some of the other functions as well. Get a little bag full of bits and pieces in here. There's various heads. They give you a choice of needle caps. I call them crowns because they do look a little bit like the crown. Just push that out of the way. So there's a little handle to help tighten things up. You've got these 2 little crowns, 2 different ones. We've got this one, which is the distance ring, and it's just a compression fitting. If I take that cap off, you don't need it. That's purely for transportation purposes. It just protects the needle. Very carefully slide that on there like so, and there you go. You've got yourself a really useful distance ring. And that will keep the tip of the needle, in this case this is already fitted with a 0.15mm needle, it keeps that keeps that needle at a distance of about 1 maybe 2mm from the surface, and it's a well balanced airbrush. You can actually stand your airbrush on its end like so. Okay. Alternatively, if you don't want one of those, you can use one of these. Put that down very, very carefully, slide that on. Again, that will protect the needle, so I'm quite happy that that needle is protected. You might be able to just about see in the camera. Okay, again you've got a distance, it gives you probably a gap of 1.5, maybe 2 mil from the actual surface. You can't get any closer than that. But the advantage of this particular one, I think, is that so you can actually see what you're doing. Often you'll find airbrush artists, they will actually take their air cap off to get in really, really close to do fine detail. This one, you can keep it on, keep your needle protected, and you can see what you're doing. You don't really want to be going any closer than 1.5, 2 mil from the surface. Any closer and you stand the chance of damaging your needle. Okay, so let's have a look at what else you get in the box. This is the 2-in-1 model, so what it offers you is another needle and a nozzle set. There you go, there's the actual whole nozzle and what have you inside there. There's an optional extra. This is a 0.4, so you've got the option of converting your airbrush from the 0.15 to the 0.4. It will give you greater volume of paint. It will give you slightly thicker paint, so you could potentially use automotive paints through that. Whereas the 0.15 is ideal for really fine, detailed stuff. Let's have a quick look at the nozzle. I'm actually going to unscrew the end here, take the air cap on the crown off, and let's have a look what goes on inside here. Now, airbrushes, they will often offer you a choice of nozzles. Generally, they come in 2 varieties. This is the floating variety. It just sits inside the air cap here like that. Pop it inside there. You've got a little Teflon or PTFE little seal there. That keeps the paint and the air separate. The air goes in there. The paint obviously goes in through there. And this is a floating tip. The advantage of these floating tips, it means interchanging from this one that's in the box to that one is actually a very, very quick and easy process to do. One thing you must make sure you put the right needle with the right nozzle. Don't, for example, try putting this 0.15 needle in with the 0.4 nozzle. That nozzle there. The needle will just stick out too far. It's incompatible. Might be the same brand, but it's incompatible. So always make sure the needle and the nozzle are compatible with each other. Screw that back in very carefully there, like so. It's a well balanced airbrush. Sits in your hand very nicely. Worth every penny as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so let's actually try this airbrush out and see how we get on with it. So I'll put a little bit of paint in. I'm going to put a single drop. There you go, single drop of paint in there. I've got a ruler, basically just so that you can see the actual size and scale of stuff here, just how small we can really get. Plug in with an airline, and I'm actually going to paint a straight line. We'll get this set up. So you can actually airbrush a straight line. That's obviously using the distance ring that you've got here. I mean, technically you can actually use the other one as well. But the advantage of this is you can actually touch the surface with this and you can spray really fine lines. Like so, it gives you really fine detail. Right, I'm going to try and get in really close here so that you can see this. And I'm just going to try and see if I can find my name really tiny. There you go. What's that? I've written, there you go, Fred. It's about 5 mil from one side to the other. Probably could get smaller, but then the camera wouldn't pick it up. So you get really fine detail. That's obviously with the 0.15mm needle nozzle. So overall, this airbrush, how would I rate it? I would certainly give this 9.5 out of 10. Always room for improvement with any product. If you get 10 out of 10, where'd you go from there? But overall, a really nice airbrush.